Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The Armed Forces Special Powers Act for Jammu and Kashmir has been in force in the state now for 25 years. The controversial act which gives the Armed Forces special powers to shoot to kill, destroy a building, to arrest without a warrant, among others, is to be used in disturbed areas of the state. While this act, according to its supporters, has been of great help in containing militancy and even cross-border terrorism to a great extent, the opponents feel that the act has been more abused than used. The Amnesty International India, in a report released yesterday, points out that 96% of the complaints against the army in Jammu and Kashmir have been dismissed as baseless or false or aimed at maligning the armed forces. The provision in the act which states that any prosecution against armed forces in this area has to be permitted by the central government has led to most of the cases being denied permission or kept pending for years. Today we will look at how this act has fared in the last 25 years in the troubled state and what have been the problems in its use, as well as whether this act should continue to be in force in the state. To discuss this, I have with me Lt.Gen.Raj Kadyan, Vice Chief of Army Staff retired, Prashant Bhushan, Advocate in the Supreme Court, Rahul Jalali, Senior Journalist, Gautam Navalakha, Democratic Rights Activist, and Raghu Menon, Advocacy Coordinator, Amnesty International India. Welcome to all of you. General Kadyan, you think this, in all these 25 years, this Armed Forces Special Powers Act has been used in a responsible manner by the Army?
Girish, unfortunately, this act has acquired a kind of notoriety and is being considered a blanket under which the forces are reportedly or allegedly go on wanton killing. It is not so. It is an enabling act. Let us look at it in the right perspective. How does the problem start? You have a problem in an area. The area is declared disturbed. It's only then that the army is called. Nowhere in any country in the world the army gets involved in civil problems without legal protection. Army, as it is, accountable to its own hierarchy. If there is a mistake that is made, which is not in good faith, army punishes the people. Number of people have been punished, court-martialed, jailed. There will be mistakes. If you have 500,000 people trying to control the militancy in the state, mistakes will happen, but those mistakes also happen in areas when this act is not in force. We had a girl raped in Buddha Jayanti Park by army people. There is no act here. So, genuine mistakes, anything done in good faith, even if an innocent person gets killed, has to be condoned because the man is done in good faith. Otherwise, you look at the soldiers' mentality. You send a man who belongs to Kerala, Tamil Nadu or Bengal into J&K without his consent. You send him an operation without his consent, maybe against his will. You give him a task, he does it, he makes a mistake, then you hang him.
You can't ask for the consent or...
you can't. Agreed.
I don't think they expect it also.
If you look at the figures, when you say 96% complaints have been found, how many, if these complaints must be minuscule? You look at also the number of people who have been punished. After all, army has to run a disciplined force. It cannot remain disciplined if the people are let loose. One case gets blown up. This is also a propaganda tool used by the militants to demoralize the army because they do not want the army to operate in those areas. If the area is peaceful, move out the army. Declare it undisturbed. It is normal area, then why do you need the army? Okay. But if you have to have the army, you have to give them legal protection.
You have to give them legal protection to what extent? Prashant Bhushan, would you agree with the general? If you have to have an army protecting certain areas, you have to give them legal protection.
No, I don't agree with that at all. You see, under the normal law also, there is full legal protection given to the police as well as to the army. If somebody is killed in normal operations, etc., the police or any law enforcement agency charge sheets with a police officer or an army personnel only if he has committed a rape or if he has committed a premeditated murder. Now, in virtually in no case, though there have been so many charges and complaints against army personnel committing rape, military forces committing rape, picking up people and murdering them in cold blood, etc., without any provocation, without any real operations, or without any combat. And yet, even in those cases, the army has not given permission. This is what the Amnesty International report shows. This is what the reports of a very large number of organizations show, that the army does not give permission for prosecuting its personnel. Hardly ever has the army given or the government given permission for prosecuting army personnel, even when it's a case of rape. Where is the question of genuine mistake in the case of a rape? Where is the question of genuine mistake when it's a case of cold-blooded murder in custody?
No,
where the army picks up people, takes them to an undisclosed location and shoots them down?
Prashant, therefore, my question is this.
This has become a fig leaf. This is a totally inhuman, illegal, unconstitutional law.
Okay.
Unfortunately, once the courts did uphold the validity of this, but in my view, it's a human, illegal, and totally unconstitutional law, which needs to go out of the statute of this country.
Okay. Gautam, when Prashant is saying that, even in such cases, what he described, permission is not granted, what is he talking? You people also have been talking in the same lines. When you say permission has not been granted, General Kadyan says that the army itself takes care of these kind of cases. The court martials are held, punishments are given. What is it? Are you talking of giving permission for civil, for in criminal courts, that these permissions need to be needed so that
if we are a constitutional democracy, and there is equality before law, then in all situations, whether there is an armed conflict or non-peace stations, criminal courts jurisdictions must apply where civilians have been affected by anybody in authority, be it armed forces of the union, or police, or anybody else. Therefore, the moot question about AFSPA and the immunity or the legal immunity that the armed forces enjoy have to do with this fact. If you take Pathribal case as an illustration, where the CBI investigated, discovered and came to the conclusion that there was prima facie evidence, prepare a charge sheet, it was challenged, and the Supreme Court unfortunately upheld that it is under the Armies Act, section 125 and 126, is the Army's right prerogative to decide whether a case should be referred to a criminal court or its own court martial. In going through that court martial, the army has exonerated all the people that the CBI has charge sheeted. Now, my point is very simple. Number of cases where the sanctions have not been given, which are on record, is one. But there are any number of cases where there has been no FIRs filed in the first place. Because filing FIR itself is an onerous process in this country, and particularly so in an armed conflict area. There is no investigation. Even if there is an investigation and there is a prima facie evidence, the criminal court has no jurisdiction without sanction of the central government. So we come down to it. Now, court martial, please remember, and the General Security Forces court, which have armed forces of the union, covers not just the army. We should not just single out the army. There is also central paramilitary forces, which are covered by AFSPA. So let's not just keep on hammering and talking about the army. All of them are affected. They have the law, and please understand their courts are courts of discipline, not courts which dispense justice to civilians, because civilians have no jurisdiction. Therefore, we come back to the basic fundamental problem with AFSPA or legal immunity, which is given is principally when the government of the day decides a political problem cannot be resolved any other way. They lack imagination and they lapse into, and they ask the army and the armed forces to go and restore order and authority of the state, which is in the course of which a lot of violations, atrocities, massacres, killing. We know of all kinds of killings and atrocities that have enforced disappearance, rape, torture, killing for incentive, catch and kill. I mean, there have been any number of instances that have happened which have gone unprosecuted. It's in this light one has to look at it. I mean, General H.S. Panang, who was the GOC&C of Northern Command, has written repeatedly now that it's high time the political strategy that guides the military should take precedence and must decide that having army, and the armed forces having restored the authority, what kind of a political resolution is required, because there is no military solution.
Absolutely.
Therefore,
Okay.
it's that which is the moot question,
Okay.
that it's not the armed forces to be blamed. It's the government of the day which have repeatedly used army, its primary responsibility is to protect the border.
Not to,
To be
exactly.
deployed against our own people.
Okay.
Once you're deployed, you must be critical and we must be vigilant so that no violations of rights of our fellow citizens take place.
Okay. Rahul, Jalali, you think that, continuation of AFSPA in Jammu and Kashmir at this point of time, or, any time in the last, say, 10 years or so, has been justified?
See, I think you've got to I look at AFSPA not as a military or a legal question. It's a political question. And if you have a politically elected state government...
Which we have had for a long
yes,
time now.
Yes, please. And you also have a chief minister of the state, the previous chief minister, who has repeatedly said that AFSPA is not required in the state. I think we should give serious consideration to the political voice which is coming from the state. The center has to think about it, one. Secondly, we have claimed that Jammu and Kashmir is now moving, or at least, let me put it this way, moving towards normalcy. I think there is a great deal of normalcy. Do we require an AFSPA to continue? And I think, more importantly, in a democracy like India, in year 2015, do we at all require a law like AFSPA or not? I mean, you had a Jeevan Reddy committee, which gave its recommendation. I mean, though it doesn't directly apply to Kashmir, has it ever been reopened? Because frankly, I mean, what we are doing is we are blaming the armed forces and we get them to answer for AFSPA. I don't think that should be done. I think the question is, it's a political question and a political decision has to be taken about it.
Now the new
and
government,
I think the manner in which...
The new government in Jammu and Kashmir, at least some of the people,
see, this new government
they are saying that we cannot revoke.
See, this is a new
now.
government which was a government once upon a time. The current chief minister who is in Jammu Kashmir did mention when he was last chief minister his opposition to AFSPA.
Right.
And his political party, the PDP, also has been raising this issue. The fact is...
It's ironical that this AFSPA was introduced when he was the Home Minister.
When he was the Home Minister, exactly, in Jammu. It was extended to Jammu and Kashmir, if I put it that way. Maybe at that time, things were different. But today, the ground situation is totally different. Secondly, what does it do to the army? It gives... I'm not talking of killings because I mean, they've gone into it. But let me tell you, as someone who's seen it in Kashmiri streets, when the army convoy goes, everyone, civilian, even if it be the chief minister of that state, has to move away. So look at the dominance, the social, political dominance which the army exercises.
And also the psychological dominance.
It puts away people. Our task is to win over Kashmiris, not to push them back. And by showing an image of where, and the general is aware of it, when an army convoy passes through streets of Srinagar, which are so-called disturbed areas, the guy in front has a danda, holds a stick and he beats up every vehicle or any person walking on the street. Imagine the humiliation. Or no, and look.
But Rahul, when this was introduced in 1990, that was a time when it was necessary. Do you agree that it was necessary?
Well, maybe in 1990, yes, but today is not 1990.
Today is not
it's 2015.
But there has been years.
There has been years. I think the moment you restored political power in Jammu Kashmir, the supremacy of political establishment took place in Jammu and Kashmir.
That should have been the time.
1996. That was the time when you had to re-look at AFSPA.
That didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Okay.
And also, unfortunately, I'll just add a little bit.
Yeah.
You see, it's been political slogan mongering. No one from the political spectrum, I'm talking of mainstream political parties, has looked at the question of AFSPA or revoking AFSPA in a serious manner. Because if they have needed to do it, they could easily remove the Disturbed Area Act from whatever districts they wanted to go.
Apparently the Disturbed Area, Raghu Menon, apparently the Disturbed Areas Act doesn't exist in Jammu and Kashmir now. in whatever is being being used under the AFSPA. AFSPA has a provision under Section 3 which allows disturbed areas to be declared in those things. Anyway, those are legalities. But your organization, which has gone into it, has come out with a report. You think that majority of the cases of human rights violations, what General Kadyan says, is taken care of by the army courts, and so when you say that 96% of the cases, when your report says, then aren't you exaggerating the situation there?
Not at all. This is what the armed forces and defense ministry and the establishment has been saying. What we are trying to say is that whatever whatever kind of procedures are put in place, if a democracy is supposed to be respecting the rights of everyone, as Gautam was saying, the right to equality and accountability, these issues, then it has to be the same for everyone in situations of human rights violations. As the General was saying that there are military courts, but these military courts are infamous for lack of transparency about when they say we have found people to be innocent. What exactly happens? There is the victims of human rights violations, alleged human rights violations, do not have access. So, and as Gautam was saying, these are not courts that were made to dispense justice. There is a reason why judiciary in a functioning democracy is an independent institution. And unless there can be a transparent and accountable process, how exactly are you actually raising, how are you bringing about peace? How are you bolstering your image? Or how are you winning over people? Because, access to justice is important as much as every other right. Absolutely. Why is that? In other parts of the country, people have access to justice. And just to add that, where the government and the security establishment has been saying about how this law, AFSPA, is an enabling act, surely even the state and the government accept that it's not an enabling act to commit crimes. It's an enabling act for doing their work, which is defending the nation, neutralizing threats. But when there are grave allegations, why are we hiding behind an act? It's only through independent inquiry and process, like in a civilian court.
Right. No, you made he makes an important point. Others also have been making it. Whether the military courts, people who sit in those courts, have the necessary qualifications as per law, the legal knowledge to sit in those courts. That's one of the questions which have been asked several times in the past also.
I'm sorry, that's not the question we are posing.
What is the question, Gautam?
What we are posing is not the question whether the people who sit in the tribunal are equipped or not, or have the ability. That's not the issue. We are saying is that since court-martial is a court of discipline and not a court of justice for civilians, it's only proper that any complaint that the civilian has be heard in the criminal court.
In the criminal courts. Okay.
Girish, a couple of points have come, they may be disjointed. First, we are saying it is unconstitutional. I have no dispute with that. The act was passed by the parliament on 11 September 1958. If it is unconstitutional, let them repeal it.
No, that was it. And then 1990, there was a separate act passed for Jammu and Kashmir also.
Yes. The area, as far as I know, is still disturbed. It was declared disturbed on 5th July 1990 by Girish Saxena when he was the governor.
Right.
Now, not a single case of, I have done 3 tenures in Nagaland, 1 in Mizoram. My expertise is in the Northeast. Not a single case of rape was ever condoned by the army, nor will it ever be condoned, because that is not in good faith.
The question is not whether it is condoned or not.
I am making a distinction between
civilians. Now, why should they not have the authority to take these cases to the criminal jurisdiction?
If you go to with our legal system in the last 2 years, army will, either you want the army to operate or you want them to fight only legal cases. Our system of legal, you know that how long it takes. I've done a court-martial in Nagaland of a chap who had committed a murder. It lasted 18 days, he was given death sentence. So to say that army doesn't punish, when Prashant Bhushan says rape, I am qualifying alleged rape. You know the Poshpura case of 1991, when one of my own units was involved. The allegation is that in one night, one company committed 100 rapes of all females from 13 years to 80 years. Is it even humanly possible? After all, if they were doing it, the male population was under control. The village must have been surrounded. These are the allegations made at the behest of the militants who are Pakistan-sponsored. After all, the problem started in 1990. Army has been there all along. It's a proxy war that the army is fighting. We need to hold their hand. I fully support that it is not a military problem. Army cannot find a solution. Army is a painkiller. They cannot eliminate the disease. It's a political problem, whether it is Northeast. Nagaland started in 50s. We are still where we were. We haven't made any progress politically. So that is for the country to worry. Let me put it bluntly with all my friends around, if Kashmir is still part of India today, it is because of the defense forces. Otherwise, it would have broken up long time ago. If you want that, please move the army out. If you want to remove the act, fine, then you don't need the army. If the area is peaceful, why do you need the army? Army is not designed for winning hearts and minds. That is a plus point they're doing. That's not their main task.
It's an additional job they're doing.
Yes.
And they're not trained to do that.
They're not trained, they're not equipped, they are not charted for it.
Prashant Bhushan, how do you react to this? That, there is, all said and done, AFSPA, according to the general, has helped in retaining that state still within India. That is the claim he makes.
The problem is, I don't agree that we had to pay this kind of cost that we are having to pay for retaining the state as part of India. The cost that we are having to pay is this very, very serious alienation among the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and that alienation is primarily on account of the human rights violations that have taken place at the hands of the army and the paramilitary forces, where more than 10,000 people have disappeared, where so many people have been subjected to just cold-blooded murder, rape, etc. General Kadyan says that there is not a single case of rape which has gone unpunished. I mean, why is Iram Sharmila on a fast for the last 10 years? Why did so many Manipuri women or those women protest in that where the women had to sort of shed their dignity and protest naked outside the army headquarters, etc.? You see, there is a very, very serious problem here. To say that, look, either you deploy the army, if you deploy the army, then you have to give them full impunity. I think this is a ridiculous argument. You can't say that, well, if you ask the army, then the army will only function in this manner, that they should be given a carte blanche or a free hand to rape people and to kill people wantonly without being held accountable for it. I mean, you can certainly and you should be training the army in a manner that they don't commit cold-blooded murders, they don't commit rapes, etc. To say that Iram Sharmila is sitting on a fast for the last 10 years because she is a foreign agent, because she is an ISI agent, is absurd. This shows the complete insensitivity of people who have been part of the armed forces. I'm shocked to hear this kind of a statement being uttered by General Kadyan.
Okay. Gautam, there is also another very interesting aspect to this whole thing. It is said that actually that section 3 of AFSPA, which needs to be periodically reissued, has not been reissued for the last 10 years now. And so there are doubts about whether AFSPA is being used legally or illegally in Jammu and Kashmir.
Sure, I mean the legality of AFSPA and the technical flaws in it one can discuss, but let's stick to the more the substantive point, because I think that's where
when the act itself is not actually exist, because it has not been reissued after 2005.
The
areas have not been
gazette
declared
notification and the review, which is supposed to take place every 6 months, they have not been put in the public domain. So we are not aware whether any review took place. And if it did take place, what were the conclusions? Because it's not available in the public domain. So that is one part of the story. But I think the real story is when General Kadyan says that in 1990, it became imperative for us to invoke AFSPA and send in the armed forces of the Union because of the proxy war. I beg to differ from them. I think this whole question about proxy war itself is a diversion from the fundamental responsibility that Government of India has, because Jammu and Kashmir has been in control of Indian government since 1947. Therefore, to blame outsiders for creating a problem which you can't handle, I'm sorry, that's putting too much of blame on outsiders and shirking your own contribution to making of the crisis. That is one point. Second point I would like to say is that at every point, right in 1990, there was a possibility of a political resolution. And again, thereby, I'm making a distinction between the armed forces of the Union and the political authority. It was the task of the political authority to seize that opportunity and to enter into a political resolution to resolve a dispute that still afflicts us after 68 years. That's our point. And finally, I want to say that why is it that the Government of India, both under UPA 2 and the present Narendra Modi government, is saying that it's the security forces which have the final call to make on the withdrawal of AFSPA?
Absolutely.
Since when in a constitutional democracy have the security forces or the armed forces of the Union been given a veto right over something which is the prerogative and ought to remain the prerogative of the political authority?
I think you have an important point there. I think this has been a problem in the past also, which continues to be. Raghu, Menon, there was a problem while you people were were preparing this report. There was this person, one of your researchers had to go back. You think that was these kind of problems will create future problems for organizations like yours?
I think, as has been shown by a report and the work of many civil society organizations working in Jammu and Kashmir, Northeast and other parts of the country, when we are talking about a law, a dreaded draconian law such as AFSPA, the priority and the concern is the human rights violations that have been committed, under its stead. And by cracking down or restricting legitimate research to bring this out and make this a discussion in a, as is constitutionally guaranteed through freedom of expression, I think the government would do better to actually talk about these issues. And just a reminder to all our representatives is that when we are talking about AFSPA, why is that the government, the media, people who are engaged in this debate are not listening to voices that are coming from the areas where it is implemented?
Okay. Yes, General Kadyan.
No. First point I want to make is that
quickly running out of time.
We apply the human rights protection only to civilians. Can I ask any human rights organization? We had lost 18 soldiers in Manipur recently. Did any human rights violation occur there or no? Were they not human beings? They were sent there on government duty. They were killed in cold blood, which, whether it is Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch, it raised their voice, not a single voice. Because soldiers are considered as expendable. They are a fodder. Secondly, as far as the military system is concerned, you had a recent case where on a police checkpost, army checkpost, some 3 boys got killed.
Okay.
Within 2 days, the army commander said we will punish them, and they were punished.
Only after protests.
This point. Very quickly, Rahul, we are completely wrong. Sir, I think we have made a point.
When you talk of human rights violation in Kashmir, just don't put all the blame on the army.
No.
Yes, there must be cases where there have been human rights violations, but human rights have been violated also by a lot of people who carry the gun from the other side.
Yeah.
So when you look at human rights violation, please arrive at a balance. Otherwise, opinion, if just army has made the target, then you're not being fair.
No, but Rahul, the final question
I think you have to balance between
should
both.
AFSPA continue in Jammu and Kashmir?
Well, I think it's a political decision, and I think today in 2015, I do not think it's a debate between military and the political establishment. I think a political call has to be taken.
Okay.
And it is a debate within the political establishment. Please leave the armed forces out of it.
Okay,
do not politicize them.
Okay, I think on that note we need to end. But this is a debate which needs to continue because As Rahul, Jalali and my other guests also said, it's a political call, and hopefully the political call will be taken soon enough so that more lives will not be lost and more human rights violations don't take place. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, The Big Picture, same time tomorrow.